So this is all those pieces of footage put together. I'm going to go over how to bring them in, but I want you just to kind of see the overview, and then we'll take a step back and do it step by step. Okay? So ideally in this situation, we have one set of shots, we have one scene, and we need to replace a very similar item in each one of these scenes. So in this clip, she's using a screen, a touch screen in front of her to manipulate something. We don't know what. That's up to us what we want to put in there. She also has a keyboard. Let me take this down to 1.8 just so it goes quicker. She also has a keyboard down here that she types on. Not there. Not there. Right there. So she's typing on a keyboard. She's grabbing some stuff, and at the very end, she's typing on the keyboard again. So this 5 shots that we have here is obviously going to be a bit of a challenge because we've never done anything, obviously, to this level. But all the stuff that we're going to do is all stuff that we already have done. So we've already played with 3D a bit inside Nuke. We've already played with some tracking stuff. We've already played with like the iPad thing where she's moving stuff around. So all that leads up to this kind of thing. So now we're taking it and just kind of amplifying all the stuff that we're doing for something like this. Now in this kind of shot, even though we've done tracking, there's very little camera movement on each one of these shots. Not actually enough camera movement to actually use tracking on, okay? Now you could try, and I want you to kind of experiment with this, you could try like tracking her hand or doing something like that if you wanted to. Instead of manually keyframing like where her hand swipes, you could track her hand moving and use those set of keyframes to animate something going across. It doesn't need to be that complex. Realistically, we could just kind of push through it and it'll work out. So, where did I go? Zoom out. Here we are. All right. So what I did was I took all the shots and I put them into Nuke, and then I created this. And this is kind of my stand-in for a screen that would be in front of it. So anytime you do any kind of tracking at all, you don't want to just start with the first shot and get the first shot perfect without testing out the waters and everything, okay? So my first goal in this is to get the footage in here and then get it so that I have a consistent screen that I can use from shot to shot to shot. So that's what we're seeing here is the same screen being used over and over again because I don't want to have to recreate it for every shot. That doesn't make sense. We also eventually will have to do some planning too. These specific shots that are here, there's 5 shots, they're not in any specific order. So realistically, we could have it do anything we want in any order. I could have her typing and then go to swiping and then go to a close-up of something else, then go to something else. It realistically doesn't matter. I put them in chronological order. So the lowest numbers are first and then the later numbers are after. So you can see in this 5 shots here, then it looks like everything's kind of lined up. It looks like there's actually could be a screen in front of her, even though right now it's just a color bars. This helps me kind of get an idea of what's going to be in the frame. It helps me get an idea of perspective. It helps me get an idea of where I need to focus my attention on. Especially for a shot like, oh, it's so close. Look how much memory. I just need a little bit more memory and I would have had that. Especially for a shot like this, obviously I don't need to pay any attention really to that other screen. Mainly I need to pay attention to the keyboard. And then this other shot right here, right there, I only see a portion of the screen, so I need to make sure that I only pay attention to that portion of the screen, okay? So there's a lot of stuff that went into this. Everything that I did for this setup, it was done manually. So there's no tracking. It's literally just me kind of like lining up where I want this thing to be and doing it that way, okay? So let me step off to the side here. I'm just going to save this and just make a new comp. Okay, and it's also, now that we're getting into this setting where we're doing multiple pieces of footage in, we don't want to have to reload our footage every time we come into Nuke, where we have to go to each file node and reload each file. It's a big hassle, and we've talked about it a little bit before, but now we have to be a little bit more cautious about it, a little bit more aware of what's happening, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is bring in my footage. So if I go to my shots here, DPX, this is the DPX footage, and there's 5 shots inside here, okay? So I'm just going to go to the first one. I'm going to click on this, and if you hit next, what it'll do is it opens up that footage, and then keeps the box open so you can just go to the next piece of footage, which is nice. So I go to the next one, go to the next one, go to the next one. The hardest part is remembering which one did I just click on. Go to the next one. And then the last one, I'll just hit open. So now I have these 5 pieces of footage. So they're right there. I can hit L, and it lines them up. Okay, so quick, nice hotkey is L. Now I want to see which is the order that I want to put these in. Okay, so I'm going to grab the first one and hit 1, and then I want to see the frame range. So I set this global to input, and it'll show me the frame range. Okay, this one is 504 to about 560. I click on 1 on the next one. Yep, that's right. 564 to 620. Hit 1 there. 1568 to 1624. Hit 1 here. 365 to 420. So this guy should be over here. Hit 1 on this one. Whoa, too far. 232 to 370. So that one should be way over here. Okay. So I'm going to hit 1, 1, and I'm just verifying that they're in order of some sort. Perfect. Okay. They don't actually need to be in order. It just makes it easier if they're in order. Typically, if this was something somebody else shot, you're getting the raw files and you're just putting it on there. Okay, so now if I wanted to see what all of these look like put together, I can add what's called an append clip. And the append clip literally just appends them. It just goes clip 1, clip 2, clip 3. Now notice what happened to my timeline when I set the append clip. My append clip starts at frame 1 now, and it goes to 366. So just something to be aware of, because as we're doing this, we are going to be setting keyframes seemingly at like frame 100, but we're actually going to be setting them somewhere else inside this piece of footage because that piece of footage doesn't have a frame 100. Okay? But now I can go through and see what each one of these pieces of footage is going to look like right after the other. Okay? And it does give you a good idea of the flow of it. It would be very weird to go from a shot like this here to a shot like this. So if I just went like that and I went here and then we zoomed up on her, it might seem weird to just like zoom up on her. That doesn't make sense. For the cutting away to the other shot, so we see the side view of her. So she's swiping. We see the side view of her, and then we see that. Okay, so that's why the order is very specific. All right, so now if we double click any one of these, we have this huge long file name here, and if I go home and work, I have to go through and relink each one of these files. If I switch computers, switch a folder name, switch whatever, I have to go through and relink every one of those files. So I'm going to click off and click down here and hit S. That way I can get to my project settings. And on my project settings, we want to set up our project. So the first thing is, where is this thing going to be called and named and everything. So I'm going to put it inside my work folder, and I'm just going to put it here and call this hologram screen .nk. Okay. A common thing people do is they name it down here in the filter. That has nothing to do with the file name. Don't name it that. Okay. So call it whatever you want to call it. Screen. I should probably put my last name in here also. There we go. No spaces, no fancy characters, just exactly that. Thanks, sir. For the project directory, I'm going to click on the DPX. That's where all my footage is, so I want to make sure that my footage is kind of housed within that DPX folder. I'm going to hit open. Okay? So with this being set to the DPX folder, what I can do is create what's called a relative link. I can say, instead of it going P drive, my name, 2560, work, DPX, DPX again, and then the individual folders, I can say just go into wherever the project directory is, go into the DPX folder, go into that piece of footage, and then that's where it should be. So if I double click this, instead of having all of this stuff, because all of that I just highlighted, that's my project directory. So if I just delete that, it still works, okay? Because it's reading this as my file. It says go into the DPX folder and grab that piece of footage. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to delete all of this stuff. Okay, so wherever that second DPX is, I just delete everything before it, because that's where my footage is at. And now if I change computers, all I have to do is set my project to the correct directory, making sure it's still in that first DPX folder, And then I just go to each one of these and just hit reload, and then it's good to go. It'll automatically know to use that piece of footage. Okay? So it may take you doing it 300, 400, 500 times before you get it, but it is possible. Okay? So for frame range, I'm going to leave this frame range alone for now because we don't have a specific frame range. So I'm just going to leave it. Frames per second 24, that's fine. My full size format. Look at the resolution of this one. It's kind of a weird one. 2048 by 1080. So this is 2K footage, so it's like twice as wide as it is tall. So we just come over here and we just want to make sure that we're set to that same thing. So if I go to, here it is, 2K DCP, that's my footage size, okay? Now again, that has to be set because everything we create has to be referenced back to that original size. Everything else should be good here. Close. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to get this into a setup where I have the pieces of footage where I can just slap an item on there, okay? So right now it doesn't matter what I drop on. I just need something in there so that I can see what it is that would be that screen, okay? I could add a constant, but constant is a flat color. It kind of makes sense that the screen would be kind of a flat color, but it's very difficult to see any changes in it. So one of the things that happened on my original one, I put it in there, it looked great, but then I realized that my color bars were backwards, okay, because of how I set it up. So by having the color bars, I can easily see which side is always on the right of the girl. So that's why I use color bars, because it's easy to see if I have the white on this side in every shot, it should be on that side. And if it's not, I need to flip something around in order for that to work, okay? All right, so we need to get this piece of footage inside here. So the easiest thing to do is just do a merge. There it is. Okay. Now because we don't have a alpha channel on here, it does this. It does this weird kind of funky mesh between the two. But the second I grab the color bars and I put a transform node on it, the transform node gives it an alpha channel, making the color bars just override whatever's there. And that's fine for now. I can scale this down, and I can kind of position it where I want this screen to be, okay? And again, because I'm doing this kind of manually, I'm going to look at kind of landmarks. I'm going to look at the side of the screen. Let me brighten it up so you can see it better on the projector. There we go. So I'm going to look at the side of this table here and the side of the screen, and I basically want to keep a line right there because I'm assuming that that's how it would be set up, is that it would be where the table ends is where that line ends. So I'm just going to scale it up a little bit more. That's pretty good right there. I should actually probably rewind this to the beginning. There we go. Come on. And maybe I'll take the scale up a little bit more in here, 0.9. That should be good. I can see the other end of the table right here and the other end of the table there. So I'm just going to put that about there, even lower. That's good. 0.88 seems to be the magic number. Okay. So I want to be able to see the girl behind this. This is kind of weird not seeing her. If I go to the merge, I can just take this mix and just control that. So just like we controlled it like on the boy and on the iPad thing, we can control it just like that. All right, so that's good. Cool. All right, so now if I hit play, I'm gonna take my proxy down too. This is like your quality. Right now it's at full quality. I'm gonna take it down to like 4, just so it goes a little bit quicker. Okay, so obviously the screen is moving. Obviously the camera is moving in this shot and she isn't. Or in the screen isn't, okay? So if we go back and forth, we can see that it looks weird having the screen not move at all. So we need to have that screen move. So now we could try to track it, and I'll tell you that I did track it. I spent about 15 minutes just playing with tracking, trying if I can get it. Didn't work, so it's actually, in this kind of shot, it's easier just to manually do it, okay? You set about 5 keyframes, and it should be good enough for what we're doing, all right? Especially with having the landmarks there and not a crazy move, it worked out pretty good. So I want to set keyframes on it. Now, I also have this issue where I'm working on the append clip, right? So I'm viewing the append clip, So I don't know when the end of this clip is. I basically want to set a start point at the beginning, an end point, and then go in the middle and tweak it. So if I just view the merge, it gives me exactly what I need to see. There's my piece of footage. Okay. So now as I hit play, I know exactly where the end is. It's right here at 370. So I can go to 370 and just scoot this over. And maybe scoot it up a bit. And there it is. Okay? Then I can kind of go like halfway and just scoot this over again. And because I'm using that table as my marker, I just move it over to where the table is. Kind of keep the same distance. Reference this frame here at the beginning, which one of the things you always have to do is make sure you're actually setting keyframes, and I'm not. So I'm going to right click on my translate, and I'm going to set a key. Perfect. Now we'll go to the end. We'll set a key here. After teaching animation class for so many years, you think I'd know that. There we go. Okay. So now we'll go in the middle, and now we'll scoot that over again. And then we'll kind of go in the middle of this and scoot it over. And then we're just kind of watching it. You know, if it shimmies off, like right there, it's kind of shimmying off, just scoot it over. We don't need to go frame by frame. If it slips a little bit, it's not going to be a huge deal because of what it is. There we go. So that should be pretty good. So now I can play this and view and make sure that what I'm seeing is good. Sometimes what happens is the left and right is good, but vertically it starts moving just because we don't have anything really to line that up vertically to. Okay, so that looks like it's pretty good. I may want to tweak it again later, but for the most part, that's pretty good. I do notice that there is a slight bit, like if you look at the distance here, like this height here and that height there is a little bit off, just like a hair off, right? So if I go to my skewing here, that's like way too much. 0.005. Like that looks like it's good, 0.008. And it seems like a ridiculously low number, but why not? You know, make sure it's accurate, because you know the one guy is going to call us out on it. And again, we could keyframe that as well. Okay? And it does dip down a little bit right there too, so I'm going to go to my keyframe here and just scoot it up a little bit. So there we go. So that seems better. Okay. So this shot is good. I have that bar set up. So now if I wanted to add anything to her movement, easy. I just kind of create a little interface in this kind of document size, and I can animate pieces going across. So I'll show that after we're done with the other ones, okay? So I like to make sure everything's set up first. I like to go through each shot, make sure I have that lineup, make sure I know how big the thing is going to be, and then we're good. All right, so now let's go to this one. So this one's going to be a bit trickier because, number one, we don't really see anything in the shot. Her hand is off screen doing something, so we have to kind of fake it. So I'm imagining from the angle we're at that we might see like part of the screen here and her there. So we have to kind of fake it a little bit. Now what I don't want to do is try to use a transform for that. There's no way that I can use a flat transform and get it to look like it's laying the other way. Okay, so this is where we start to get a little bit fancy. So I'm going to start organizing myself a little bit. Let's just scoot this here, scoot this here. I'm going to pull that way over here. I'm going to pull these three way over here. And that way I can focus just on this one. And you can see how high up I'm bringing it. There we go. Okay. So what I'm going to do is a 3D setup for this. Okay. So I can do a couple things. We'll look at that in a second. So I'm going to grab my color bars and just copy it. And I'm going to paste it here. And just so you can see that this would not work otherwise, if I just view this and add a transform, you know, I don't have a rotation that would allow me to rotate it in that specific direction. Okay, so I can't use a transform. Now there is a couple things. There's a card 3D. This is a neat thing. So this is kind of like After Effects 3D, where it's like a fake version of 3D, right? So instead of having an actual camera in our scene, we could rotate this card in 3D. So if I go to rotate in the Y direction 90 degrees, and then I move it over in the Z, there it is. Okay, not terribly too difficult to do. Now we do have to worry about size in this point, because in this case, look how tiny the screen is now compared to how big it was in the other shot, right? Also, if we look at the other shot, let me jump down to the other shot. I just want to verify that yellow is on her right, our left, so that when we come up here and we view the merge, yellow is on her right, well, it's our right too now this time because we're on the same side. All right, so I'm going to take this card 3D and I'm going to scale it up. So let's say 5, 10, 20. There we go, let's say 20. And I'm just going to scoot this over. Okay, and I think I need to bring it down also, so I'm going to bring this down. Oops, too far down. Come on. Sometimes the proxy thing here does this. It does this weird thing where it's showing like her zoomed in. I don't know why it does that. All right, so now we have this card 3D and it works out perfect because all we need to do is just kind of like leave the card there, right? That's all we have to do. Now there is a bit of camera movement on this. So as we look at the piece of footage here from start to end, I guess I'll just hit play. Look at the background. Don't look at her so much because it'll be hard to see. We have to look at the background and see how much that background moves. Look at that dark area here, and you can see how big that dark area gets. So what it looks like is happening is that we're moving the camera just like this way. So if I move the camera that way, my card would actually go this way, right? So that's what I need to do. So I'm going to go to my card. I'm going to set a key this time. So set a key at the beginning. We'll go to the end, and then we'll scoot the card over. And it'll be in the Z direction, so I could just kind of move it here. There we go. Okay? And then it's just preview. It's just, let me watch it and see if it looks like it's moving more than it should. It looks like it's moving kind of weird. Okay? And the reason, I'm going to go to the curve editor. Look at the curves for this. I hit F, and I'm moving this. There we go. So the curve for this is linear, right? And the camera wouldn't go linear. They would have a start and a stop, like an ease in and ease out of it. So that's what I'm going to do, is I'm just going to click on this and just adjust these bars. So I'll just adjust that bar, just adjust that one. Unlike Maya, there's no trick to it. It's just like grab the bars and move them. So then we rewind it, we hit play again, and we see. What was that?
The camera's only really moving in the first half of the shot.
It is only moving for the first half of the shot. So then we can go to the dope sheet and grab this and scoot it over to where the camera stops moving. I believe is right there. Okay, so just scoot that over. Okay, so there we go. Let me check my curve editor just to make sure that we're still linear. There we go. So that's good enough. I could go back and tweak any of these things afterwards too. Again, this is just like rough placement of everything. All right, so that shot's good. I am going to take this little bar and connect it to that merge. Because as I do any previews, I want to preview it from the append with all my footage on there. So as I see this, and that goes into this, and then that would go into the other shot. Okay, so now here we have shot number 3. And this one, there is no movement. Okay, it's I believe this is a static shot. Yeah, this is a static shot. So again, we can use this setup. So I'm just going to steal this stuff and copy it and paste it over here, and then just hook it up. So the merge would go to this would go to that. I view the merge, and then I just need to adjust that transform. Okay, so I'm going to delete the keyframes on it. Say no animation on there, yes. And I'm just going to make this bigger, and I'm just going to shrink it down. There we go. And I think I have that skew still on here. Yep. I can get rid of that. They straighten the camera out between shots. Cool. All right, and then that's it. So that should be good here. Cool. And now we'll go to the next shot. And the next shot we do have, again, another camera move. Okay, and because we have a camera move, I'm going to grab my card 3D and my merge and just bring all this stuff down. Okay, so as much as you can repurpose your stuff, that's the workflow you want to get into. And I'm starting to get a little messy, so I need to start organizing stuff. I'm going to hold Control and drag a little dot down, just so things are staying organized. There we go. And on this card, I'm going to delete the keyframes. Yes. Get that over. I'll view this. I'll just take the card and rotate it. Let me just reset this. Oops, 1. Or let me just delete it and just add new card 3D and just drop that in. There we go. Now, why they didn't set it back to where it was. All right, so 90-degree rotation here. Scoot this over there like that. I can kind of see where the end of the table is, so that kind of helps out. This isn't a full 90. Maybe it's a 60 degrees. Nope. 40. Maybe. All right. I can use this table as kind of a guide too. So if I look at the table, and I look at the distance here, it might be like 45, 44. 43 looks pretty close. Okay. Pull it back. And then again, we size it up, right? So maybe this is set to 2. Nope, maybe not 2. 1.5 looks pretty good. All right, so that looks good there. Again, we're going to go to the merge, make sure this is turned down so we can actually see her. There we go. I think it, oh no, that's the bottom bar. Okay. So now we can go ahead and animate it. So I'm going to go to the end. And just kind of see what this is doing. It looks like, again, we're just kind of moving over to the right. So I'll go to my card, I'll right click, set a key, go to the end, and then just pull this back. Now in this case, we're going to the right, so I think that the card would also kind of move to the right a little bit. And a lot of these, you just kind of look at it and see if it's feeling right. I think I want to go the other way. There we go. That's right. Okay, and look for landmarks while you're doing it. So I'm looking at the window. The red lines up perfectly with that window bar. So as I watch it move, I'm watching the red line and that window bar moving together. All right, so that's good there. Now, we're not going to have those things, but it just helps. Visually, it just helps us kind of get it lined up. All right, now we have this one. I believe this is probably the most complex one that we have just because of the angle of it. Okay, I don't think there's any camera movement. No, there's no camera movement on this one. Okay, so we're going to take color bars card. We'll take the color bars down here. And we'll add a card 3D. And we'll merge it into that. There we go. Again, we're getting messy, so we want to keep this nice and clean. There we go. We'll go with our card. Oh, I'm not viewing it. There we go. Okay, so now I can see the card here. I'm going to rotate it downward. There it is. I'm just using my tools here just to rotate it around. Let's reset these back to 0. It's not rotating correctly. So X, rotate down. There we go. Blue is going to be on that side, so let's make sure it's rotated correctly that way. Yes. Let's push it back in the X direction. Push it up in the Z direction. Rotate it down some more. Nope. This one's being tricky. Let's try hooking up a camera to this. So we can actually hook a camera right into this card, and by moving the camera, that will give us more different angles. There we go. So that's kind of like that. Nope. All right, I'm going to go with the other setup that I did on my other one. On this one, I actually built like a little 3D scene. Okay, so I'll show how I did that, and then I'll just use this because it did take a second to set up. So I'm going to create a regular card, okay, which is an actual like 3D card. So if I come up here and hit tab, there's a card here that's actually like floating around. Let me hide that. There we go. So there's my card. So I'm going to lay it down on the ground. So I just rotate it 90 degrees this way, 90 degrees that way. So now that's basically like the table. That's what that signifies. And what I need to do is connect this into a scene so that I can render it out. So I'm going to go to a scene. There it is. And in order for me to render it out, I need a camera. Okay, so I'll connect the camera to the scene. And then the final spot of this is that I'm going to use a scanline render. Where's the camera? There he is. Where's your background? It's going to be there, but that's fine. I'll just merge that in. Okay. So now if I were to view this, so I hit 1 on this to view the scan line, I hit tab here, I'm viewing through the camera. Okay? So the camera right now is seeing nothing because that card is right here on the camera, and the camera is just seeing basically like out into nothingness. So I'm going to hit tab again. I'm going to grab the camera, and I'm going to pull it back. There we go. So now if I hit tab, now we can see where the camera is set up. So now the camera is actually behind the card. We can see where the card's at. If I go to my merge, this is what we're getting because I'm not merging my scan line. There it is. Okay. So now my scan line is going to be easier to set up because I'm basically using a camera that has some sort of perspective to it. So I can go to my projection. I can change my focal length to like 20. I can change my card size to like 5, let's say. And then I'm just going to go back into my 3D view here. And I'm going to basically just move the camera into where I think it would be set up. So looking at that shot right here, the camera looks like it's right at the desk, like right level with the desk, kind of angled off to the right. So that's what I'm going to do with this camera. I'm going to put it right at the desk, hold control so I can get to the rotate, and it's kind of rotated off to the right. Okay. Now in order to get it lined up, I need to have basically like where's my original footage. So I constantly need to switch back between these two in order to see this stuff so that I can get it lined up. So once I have this kind of set up, I can rotate my camera. There it is. Rotate my camera to get it better lined up. Okay. Now it's very difficult to get your camera to line up right as it is just by playing with these settings just because of where the pivot is. So what I'll usually do is add an axis. If you forget the word, it's right there. And I can connect that to this. It basically gives you like a second level of manipulation on there. So now I can go through and manipulate this axis. And you can see how easy it is to now rotate that exactly where I want that to be. And rotate this, oops, exactly where I need this to be. And then tweak that. And then tweak this. Cool. So that's pretty much, it's almost there. It's very close to being where I need that to be. I'm just trying to match the perspective of the desk. So looking at this line here and this line, trying to get those to line up. I can go grab my card again. Come on. Let me clear everything. she's not updating. There we go. There we go. And then I'll make this a little bit bigger, so maybe like 6, 8, 7, 6.5. There we go. So that seems to match pretty good, right? Like that would be believable if that's like sitting on where her fingers are. It needs to come down a bit further. There we go. All right, now I don't want to ever distort this. I don't want to stretch it out, because if I created any, perfect circles or perfect squares, it's going to stretch out those perfect circles and perfect squares, okay? So we can keep tweaking this until we get it perfect, but I think that's for right now, that's good enough. All right, so look at this huge mess. It's just all over the place. We need to keep everything organized. As we start doing things, just like our iPhone one, where the guy was swiping and we had all those little icons that added up to that thing, for each one of these areas, we're going to have little icons and little things that are going to go into this. So we want to make sure that we're not like cluttering ourselves. So I'm leaving plenty of room for all of these things to kind of have their own area. Oops, you stay there. I'm going to hold control, drag a little dot here. And these dots are a great way to keep organized. So here's like shot 1. Here's shot 2. Let me put this over here. I'll drag a little dot down to this area. Here's shot 3. I'll put it right above it. Perfect. Here's shot 4. We'll put this over here. We'll drag a little dot. And again, this is just organization. That's what we're doing. Just organizing this stuff just so we can get it set up so that it doesn't drive us crazy while we're working on it. Where'd that dot come from? Just delete that. Okay. So now if I go and view that append, and we rewind it, and we hit play, what we should be able to do is see a continuous flow of this shot with our checkerboard, or with our color bars going from shot to shot. And let me save it first. Yes. I'm going to tap the space bar, hit F, so we can see it. Which program am I in? There we go. And you'll notice stuff as you watch it over and over again, like how high this bar is here. In the last shot, it was a bit too far down. Like I could see the corner of it. I don't think I want to see the corner of it. You could also do things like, in rendering class, they have that checkerboard, that crazy checkerboard that has numbers and letters all over it. You could use that as your image inside here. That way you could see exactly like which button is she clicking here, where's eye level. So when she goes to the next shot and she's clicking eye level, where is that spot at, okay? The only thing I would mention is to make sure that it's the same proportions, right? So this shot is 2048 by 1024. Make sure it's the same resolution. All right, that could probably be a little bit bigger too, that little keyboard. And that little keyboard would also have to come into here. So I'd also have to bring that flatness into that as well, okay? So I would do all this. This is the first step. Every shot you get, this is the first step, okay? Making sure your stuff is tracked correctly. It does you no good to go on to the next step if this part isn't done. Because what you do is you set up, she clicks and moves, but then, whoops, my track is off. So now where she clicks is now over here, right? So you have to make sure that this tracking part is lined up good. So let me jump to my other scene just so we can see. Not that. Blue, roto, checkerboard, here we go. All right, so in this one, I added just a couple of stand-in pieces, just like we had on the other one. I wanted to add some stand-ins. I lied, that's not the one. Where is it at? Checkerboard, shuffle. Oh, am I way over here? Yep, there it is.
Are you not organized?
I'm organized enough, I guess. Alright, so now let me just make sure these are set up. 504. I'm going to set my project, make sure it's in the right folder. There we go. Okay, so now if we look at this, Okay, so now this is the second step, right? So after you have everything tracked, the next step is to go back and start adding in those little placeholder things. Doesn't have to be the final stuff yet. You want to, again, get placeholders, get a feel for what's happening in your scene. Because realistically, her going like this on a screen could mean any number of things. When we did that iPhone one, everyone who turned it in, their example was different. Ben had like a little game that he was playing, and as you click it, it would turn red if you clicked it the wrong way and green if you clicked it the right way. There was another one, I can't remember whose it was, but they had like a screen. So as he's swiping it down, it swipes down, but then when he hits the bottom, it like bounces back up, which was kind of a neat way to show that. So everyone's stuff is going to be different. As she swipes, it could go to a different screen, or she could be moving a file. As she clicks there, that could be opening up files, right? There's a number of different things that could be happening with each one of these. So right now, this is just placeholders for what her exact actions are, okay? Just like we did with the guy dragging the thing down, that's what this is. So your second step is to go through and lay out this kind of stuff, okay? So between now and when we get back from break, that's what you should focus on, is getting to this step where you have all the shots lined up and then you have all your placeholder stuff in there. The last step is the funnest step, because now that we have placeholders, now that we have an idea of where everything is, it's just a matter of replacing all the stuff that's on there, okay? So in this case, this is all I did to get this piece of footage to work. I took a checkerboard and I merged it with a constant. That's all I did to get this initial shape here. And then, oops, I just viewed that. There it is. So this is my original item here, which is this. This is my background, which is kind of like a file. And I just drew it. I just rotoed and just drew this kind of shape here. And then I added a roto or a glow to that roto. And then I have this other roto that's just this little glowy shape. So this just animates. Come on. There it is. So that just animates kind of blipping in. I did it a second ago. And then that merges with these guys, which are these checkerboards up here. Okay? So that part's the same as what we've already done. And because we've already lined up the stuff, look at how easy this is to move over to another area. So if I were just to copy this, set up, go to my other version, this is the one that we just set up here. And I believe it was on this one. Nope, it was a closer one. Okay, so if I go to this one and I just remove this color bars, and I paste this in here, now it might not line up perfectly because I've moved stuff, but you can see that the timing is still there, right? So all I have to do is just update my timing. And actually, I can probably just scale this whole thing down in this case because that one is scaled up higher. Oops. And then scoot it up a tad. There we go. Okay. So what we should be able to do at the end of this is basically create one kind of fluid motion of this board, whatever it is she's touching, that we can animate from each shot so it's consistent across them. And then we'll fill in the data with all the other stuff that she's not touching. So in this specific shot, you can see how she's like swiping these things off. She hits a button. Well, there's all this other area here and down here where nothing's happening. So those areas we can load up with graphs or charts or videos or whatever we want. Okay, so that's where we can customize what she's actually doing. She might be playing a game, she might be surfing the internet, who knows. Okay, so between now and 2 weeks from now, try to get this far where you have all these things lined up and then you have your placeholders for each one of those. So if we came to your append, we'd be able to look at all that footage of her touching all these things. Okay? Any questions on that stuff? Nothing yet. Okay.